Oh, hello, TIA. Yes, long time no see. I've got a strike. I had a strike on my channel, and I've been streaming on the Maga Martha channel. I'll put the link in. And I'm actually waiting for Burbling Bison, and I hope he will arrive. I actually meant to have it at 10, but for some reason it was scheduled for 9 a.m. GMT, so he may not be awake for it. But I wasn't sure if my strike had ended, and that was why that explains the delay and confusion. But I can talk about other stuff. After all, there's so much to talk about. I've sent him the link by email so he can come join me. And I'm wondering if you would like to join me. Tax, insurance, accessories. I could do that, I suppose. So if he does come, he can join me using this link or use a link that I sent him by email. I hope the confusion will not result in his not arriving or too much affect the quality of this stream. I thought I would come on anyway, in case he doesn't arrive. And I also wanted to check if I could be streaming on this channel, but it seems I have. And so it's now a good time to mention to anybody who have missed my streams that my secondary channel is Maga Martha. And I think there is some content there that might be of interest to you. I should also share my stream. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Any topics you want me to discuss? Just let me know. One person watching. I guess I'm a little... Oh, Teo is here. Hooray. Let me just share this before I do anything else. Good to see you, Teo. Perhaps you'd like to join me before Birdling Bison joins, if he can. And then you can tell me all your news. it doesn't appear that Teo has anything more sensible to say than Christ is Lord. And it doesn't appear that he wants to argue about it, which is typical, but I do have a clip of what he said. I forget on whose channel now, about him complaining about other Nigerians adopting my tactics of my methods of debating Christians, which is to call them blasphemers. And that was what prompted Scott to mention a Nigerian colleague of his saying the same thing. So I was quite pleased with that clip. So I think Teo has a problem with Muslims, although he did say in his childhood that he got on fine with his Muslim friend in Nigeria. But when he came to the UK, he found that most people were atheist. And talking to Muslims gave him a kind of comradeship against all the atheists that surrounded him. And now he is allying himself with all these fake Christians, and I fear for his immortal soul, even though I do not. Well, I am agnostic, but I am aware of the consequences of not believing in God correctly. If there is an afterlife, and if it is indeed true that a God that can read your mind and know your motives exists to be able to punish you. So one of the more interesting things that Teo said was that his Nigerian Muslim associates appear to believe in their religion of Islam more than he believes in his Christianity. And it's actually very understandable, because it's very easy to spot a fake. They say things that are wrong. They don't actually have to say, I only pretend to be Christian. You can come across a lot of these Christ is King really believe, and they sort of, well, they give it away by talking about randos. Because if he properly believed in God, then you wouldn't think anything was random. You would think that every moment was being created afresh by God. That's what you could be thinking if you take literally the claim that God controls every single thing at every single moment. And you would not think that any event was random, or that any person was random. And so I know that PBK is wanting to call me a rando, and but I'm prepared to take the insult, because for the greater good of humanity, people ought to understand that Islam is clearly superior in that it has a coherent narrative, as well as rules that are fair enough. The question arises as to whether they are being interpreted by good people, wise judges, etc. But, if we currently do not have wise judges, we can hope that in the future we will get them if we look for them. It really is as simple as that. There is a verse in the New Testament even that says things like, knock and the door will be opened. Look and you will seek and you will find, and all that kind of thing. I certainly don't say that everything in the New Testament is nonsense. There is some wisdom in it, and the idea that all you have to do is ask is, I think it's in the Beatitudes, isn't it? It's very, very seductive. It's like you just have to ask and it's already given. So understandably, the well, some people call it cheap grace, that you can, it's all stuff and nonsense. The poor of spirit being blessed when it's obviously not the case. But there are certain conditions, and it's not quite spelt out in black and white about who really benefits from Christianity if it is indeed idolatry. So Muslims have the benefit of a clear, coherent, logical religion that whose explanation for it trips easily off the tongue, while Christians suffer from having an incoherent, illogical belief system that makes one feel foolish just for defending it. So when Mateo says things like Christ is Lord, the question arises as to, well, when did that happen? Or more alliteratively, Christ is King, which generates a question: when did the coronation take place, and who witnessed it? So these are all the problems of Christianity, and of course the Jews deny the divinity of Jesus. They think Christianity is idolatry, and so do Muslims, but they're more polite about it. So the Quran has quite complimentary references to Jesus and his mother, and Muslims would say that we're more polite about Jesus and Mary than the hypocrites claiming to be Christian. Look at Trump and his ridiculous memes pretending to be Jesus and all kinds of nonsense, and no Christian even complains of blasphemy and heresy. And that's because people claiming to be Christian are, are hypocrites. And all these um, all these signs leak out slowly when people like VVK talk about randos. And actually, PVK talks about church as being a business model, and he did give quite an interesting discussion. I forget what stream it was now, but he was talking about. I think yes, this was in response to Mark Parker saying he was going for Catholicism, and this obviously was seen as a betrayal by Protestants. And this, I think, made PBK talk about, well, you might, think you're going to something ancient by joining the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church. And it is true that, they have bigger churches and more people go there, but you will have the problem of the priest not knowing you from Adam, even if you've been going there for months, because they're so oversubscribed that if you don't know anyone, you will be kind of marginalized and ignored. Well, if you go to the smaller churches, well, they even have QR codes and they have your email and they'll come to you and, you know, do the pa- do the pastoral services much more than the old established but oversubscribed churches, because what Americans want now is, well, they want something ancient, they want something established. Um, and they basically want something older than America, and who can blame them? They want something much, much older than America, and that's why the the mostly white nationalist types find Orthodox Christianity more attractive because of its ancient lineage, but they don't understand that Orthodox Christianity did not protect the Tsar from regicide. Because going back to the original purpose of Christianity and why Constantine the Great adopted it, it was because no one really believed in the old Roman imperial cult. Last night I was watching Charles Lawton in um, the film wasn't finished. Charles Lawton in I Claudius, which was later made into a BBC series. And I even tried to watch it yesterday, but I couldn't find it on iPlayer. But there was some sort of reference to it. Yes, it was a 1976 TV mini series. It seems to be on Netflix too. I remember thinking it was quite racy. Yes, it was the um, based on Robert Graves's 1934 novel I Claudius. And if you're interested in Roman history, well, I think you will enjoy it. There's a lot of intrigue and sex, and I thought it was fun. Okay, I misread the thing. There is no proposed remake of I Claudius by Netflix, but you can watch it on BBC Two. Oh no, it's not available on iPlayer. With Derek Jacobi, Sean Phillips, Brian Blessed, and people like that. I'm still waiting for Burbling Bison to come, but I have lots of things to say to Teo about Christianity. So I was going on about Constantine the Great, who adopted Christianity because he knew that nobody in Rome at the time really believed that Roman emperors became divine after they died, and if you don't believe, you won't obey, and this is what explains the power of the Abrahamic religions. It's scripture that you know demands, commands the Jews hear and obey. It's organized religion, basically telling people how to believe and how to act and how to obey the laws of God. And I know Teo has a problem with me. I've heard him say that he's sick and tired of me telling him how to believe in his own religion when I'm not even Christian. But you don't have to be Christian to understand the doctrine of the Trinity. You can, people can tell you all kinds of lies, and you can understand what it is that they're trying to tell you and why they want you to believe a certain thing to make you act in a certain way. Fraudsters are always telling lies and making, fake things, and recently. on Luke Thompson's stream, there was a very interesting, I think it was nearly 3 hours, talking about fake races, and I was in it, I'm proud to say. Everybody actually had something useful to say for a change, and yeah, I even took an interest in what Ian was saying, and I wanted to ask him more questions about it, but he hadn't heard my question, and he faded away. Well, he left the stream, and then I left. But I remember him saying that there are a lot of fake Christians who seem to be very happy with the cheap grace that Christianity gives to them, but aren't so happy about actually obeying. But there is a question mark on what it is that you're supposed to obey, or what it is you're supposed to believe as a Christian. And we know that in practice, Christians all over the world, if they want to get on with each other, they would um, have to keep to their unspoken agreement that they will not be discussing Christian identity, the Trinity, and Christian theology, because that is a way to, well, that is antithetical to ecumenism, which is another word for Christian unity. And I'm saying Christian unity is a busted flush. And it is a busted flush because nobody dares talk about it. And now we know there is a new religion called Judeo-Christian. And this word only started being used after World War II. And this I remembered when, well, the first time I heard of it was when, in my history lessons, when my history teacher was talking about the Judeo-Christian heritage of the West. And I puzzled a little bit about what it all meant, but in the end, I realized it was biblical knowledge and, well, knowledge of the Bible stories. Irrespective of whether you believed in it or not, you should be able to understand the references. And now, of course, I understand what he really, really meant, which is the idea that you have a mythos, a common story that you as a people would know about. I mean, the Americans have the founding fathers, and this is when mythos is not really mythical or fiction, but that there is a kind of origin story of your people, and it may be true, it may not be true, but if you're part of that nation, if you were born into it, you will have it inculcated into you by your parents, by your school, and confirmed all around you about what it was. And so it's all about having common references, and I've noticed with Americans, they try to do that with their movies and their comic book superheroes, their Marvel superheroes and their supervillains and that sort of thing. And it's not enough because, they already know it's fiction, but they could go back to their founding fathers, but the powers that be do not want them to go back to their founding fathers and really understand their own history. And for Americans, it's really so important for them to ask each other if America is really a Christian nation, and what Justice Brewer meant by having to explain in a book what he meant by America being a Christian nation after he decided in an application for judicial review whether it was okay for the Church of the Holy Trinity to pay for the passage of a vicar when, according to the words of the Alien Contract Labour Act, this vicar was the importation of this vicar had clearly infringed the Alien Contract Labour Act. Oh, how nice to see you, IC3. I wonder if you two know each other. You are, well, you used to visit Speaker's Corner. Perhaps IC3 would like to join me if he is free while I am waiting for Burbling Bison. I have already sent this link to him, but I know it's quite early in America and he may not be awake. And at 9 a.m. on the dot, well, I wasn't here because I'd actually forgotten about it. And I also didn't know that for some reason the time had gone. Well, I thought I'd arranged to talk to him at 10, but in fact, according to him, it was scheduled at 9. But I thought I'd spend the time talking to you anyway. Because, in a way, I have quite a lot to say about what I think is a problem. So the problem is people like Teo. I know I've discussed the Trinity with him a long time. You could just scroll up, but I will send you the link again. Okay. I've posted the link again and hope to be talking to Mr. IC3 any moment now. As I understand it, Mr. IC3 comes from a devout Christian background. And I think a lot of people who are not Muslim will have a few problems with Islam because of its very legalistic and prohibitory nature. And here he is, Mr. IC3. Welcome, welcome.
Yes. Oh, it's Restream. What's this Restream? It seems so different. I'm used to what Restream different from is it something a different?
StreamYard.
It's different from
Yeah.
StreamYard. Oh right, okay. So it's better than StreamYard, yes?
Well, in a way, because it's free and it doesn't have a limit of 23 hours as StreamYard does. So
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. Yes, I was brought up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, actually.
oh right. Well, I know the son of Desmond Ford. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Desmond Ford. That sounds familiar, but that was years and years ago. I can't remember all the different people now.
Yeah, um, I know SDA have a really complicated theology. So I know
Yeah,
that Desmond
definitely.
Ford, he got on the wrong side of it, and he was kind of denounced for,
Oh, right. That's what I think. That was a white guy. Was that correct?
yeah, he was Australian. He's deceased now, but I know Luke Ford, who is a streamer,
Right. I
a
think I remember that.
YouTuber.
Yes, I think I remember hearing about him. Yes, that's right. That's right. Quite a while ago. Yeah. Yeah. So that brings back some memories. Yeah. He was like, I think he was a minister that kind of came with some strange ideas, and he didn't like it. They got rid of him. This
Yeah,
same
and
guy.
because I did I was a kind of drop-in guest on Luke's stream, and I was interested in these things. I looked it up, and it was so complicated that immediately I forgot, and I thought I still don't know what it's all about. And I read his obituary, and I thought, aha, so that's what it's all about. But now I've completely forgotten again. So,
Right.
so if you remember, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I can't remember what the schism was about, the reason why. But I just remember there was a minister, a white minister that left, and there was a big hoo-ha. But back then, I was a devout
Uh-huh.
Seventh Day Adventist. So, but
Yeah,
then again, I was actually a sect within the Adventist Church. You know that the Waco, Texas. You know the
mhm.
group in the Waco, Texas. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so that's a
They
division.
were a cult,
Cult. That's right. They're
the
a cult.
cult Davidians or something.
That's right. Branch Davidians. That's right.
The
They're a
branch
cult.
Davidians. Mhm,
Yeah, they're a cult who came out of
mhm,
the Seventh Adventist Church. So the Branch Davidians, there's basically the group called a Shepherd's Rod, and the Shepherd's Rod was a German guy actually, and when he died, his Shepherd's Rod faith split. Branch Davidians split into three. One went to Waco, Texas. One went to another place, and one went to another place. One went to somewhere in New York, and one went to somewhere um, uh, where I went to visit. So a, a, mem- a, a member of a cult within the Seventh Day Adventist Church. So I met quite a few people from the Waco. So that they invited me. I could have been over there. God, I would have been fried.
mhm,
Yeah. So it's the three divisions. The one in Waco is just one division, but I was a member of one of the divisions. Yeah, it's
mhm.
cult life.
Yes, and you have this thing called an investigative judgment.
Yeah. I think that sounds correct. Well, investigative judgment. To how do you describe investigative judgment?
I don't know. I'm just looking it up on Wikipedia, but Desmond Ford got on the wrong side of investigative judgment.
Oh, let me look it up myself because I never really looked it up.
Okay,
Investigative
so I'll read it out for
on it.
people who may be interested. Desmond Ford was an Australian theologian who studied evangelicalism. Within the Seventh Day Adventist Church, he was a controversial figure. He was dismissed from his ministry in the Adventist Church in 1980 following his critique of the church's investigative judgment teaching. He has since worked through the non-denominational evangelical ministry Good News Unlimited. Ford disagreed with some aspects of traditional Adventist end-time beliefs. However, he still defended a conservative view of Scripture, the seventh-day Sabbath, and a vegetarian lifestyle. He viewed the writings of Ellen G. White as useful devotionally, but not at the level of authority held by the Church. Ford shared the sermon time at the Good News Unlimited congregation, which meets on Saturdays in the Brisbane suburb of Milton and in periodic seminars on the eastern seaboard of Australia. Yeah. And
Wow, interesting. I can't remember what that scriptural debate was really.
so it was let me see. So can you remember investigative judgment?
No, I can't. I can't. I was, yeah.
So I met this Well, somebody I thought was very, very smart. He's a doctor and everything. And then I discovered he was SDA. So I went, well, I know this guy, and he's the son of this theologian. And then he said blah 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 investigative judgment. And I went, well, can you explain to me? And then he basically just blanked me because I guess he'd had enough of it. I mean, I know he's now atheist, so he's obviously reacted against it. Um, and it's very complicated. And I did try and make what I thought was a reasonably focused effort to understand Seventh Day Adventism, but I doubt that even Desmond Ford's son, Luke Ford, now understands it.
Yeah, but it's an
Because he
oxymoron.
converted to Orthodox Judaism.
Yeah, but it's a oxymoron, isn't it? Investigative judgment. So if you're investigating, you can't make a judgment. In the process of investigation, you can't be making a judgment. You have to wait till because there's an investigation, and then the investigation is presented before court, and then there's a judgment. Correct?
Well, yes. So,
So,
yeah, yes, you make an excellent point. But let me just read this paragraph in Wikipedia, in case anybody's interested. The investigative judgment, or pre-Advent judgment, or more precisely, the pre-Second Advent judgment, is a unique Seventh-day Adventist doctrine which asserts that the divine judgment of professed Christians has been in progress since 1844. It is intimately related to the history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and was described by one of the church's pioneers, Ellen G. White, as one of the pillars of Adventist belief. It is a major component of the broader Adventist understanding of the heavenly sanctuary, and the two are sometimes spoken of interchangeably. Yeah. But it seems to me that the people are just arguing about the end times before it has even arrived. It's like, okay, you think the Messiah is going to be Jesus, and you think the Messiah is not going to be Jesus, and you think the Jesus will come, but only accompanied by the Mahdi if you're Muslim. So, but what's the point of arguing about it? I mean,
yeah,
surely the most important thing, if you take it seriously, is what are we supposed to do in the meantime?
exactly, 100%. but but then again, the most important thing, correct? You're correct. Is what are we supposed to be doing? But what you're supposed to be doing depends on your is it eschatology, your
Hmm.
view of the end times, and because if you're supposed to be doing something, then you'll be judged. You'll be judged. Are you doing the right things or not? So you got to know what the right thing to do. Otherwise, it's a whole confusion, really. Because if you're being judged, um, by what standards are you being judged? And also, yeah, and so I think it's something to do with the Seventh Adventist Church being the right church means that somewhere in heaven, Jesus Christ entered the holies of holies at that date in 1844, something like that.
Hmm.
So whilst he's uh, this yeah, the word advocate. So while he's in the holies of holies, he's advocating. So while he's advocating on your behalf, then that's the judgment is not made yet because he's still you're in like a limbo land. Does it make sense? So it's investigative judgment. The final judgment has not been made because the advocate is pleading on your behalf. So you'll
Yeah.
be investigated at the same time. Something like that. Some logic
Well,
like that.
well, I mean, I hope that my investigations would be useful to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And I'm just trying to say, look, the only thing any of you can agree on is the Ten Commandments, right? Because Christians adopt the Ten Commandments, and Jews don't deny it. Muslims, talk about their five pillars of Islam, but they take a position against idolatry. So it's like we all know, whether we are Jews, Christians, or Muslims, that God, the Abrahamic God who handed the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai, for bad idolatry. And then we're left to do is consider whether Christianity is idolatry, and boom, that's all you have. You don't have to the Dead Sea Scrolls and blah 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 and whose prediction is true or whose account of history is true. It's like, is it idolatry or not? That's it.
Right. And also, the deeper question I ask is that the concept of sin. Sin. So I asked
Mm-hmm.
Muslims, I asked the Jews, I asked the Christians, I asked the Abrahamic faiths. So if there's a final judgment, end times, then there's the sheep or the goats, those that will be righteous, those that will be wicked, or whatever. So the righteous are the ones that keep the commandments, and the wicked are the ones that don't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at the end time, it's going to be absolute. You're either with the saved or you're not. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, why are we worrying about it? It sort of it hasn't happened, so there's no point arguing about it, right? And it's like, well, obviously Jews have a problem with Jesus because Christians worship him,
Mm,
right? And they say, according to Deuteronomy 13, they're obliged to execute anyone who changes the Torah. And there are all these references by Jesus to Jesus saying, I haven't come to change the law. I come to fulfill it.
mm.
But what it all means is, well, a matter of debate. But what Muslims do is say Jesus was a good guy, and so was his mum. She wasn't a whore. And Jesus never told anyone to worship him. That is the Muslim view of Jesus. While obviously Jews are saying, his mother was committed adultery with this Roman soldier, and so that was why it's a problem for Jews.
Yeah, but the bottom line still is okay. It's basically, are you a sinner or not? Are you going to be saved or not? Are you doing the right thing or not? So
Yeah.
yes. So what
So
is the
so
right
so
thing?
is it
What is the
idolatry?
right thing?
Well, I'm saying, so all you have to do is focus on whether Christianity is idolatry, whether it's idolatry to worship a man. And then it becomes clear. There's no, I mean, I know a lot of people go all around the houses and, go through the Dead Sea Scrolls and, Septuagint and whatnot. And it's like nobody understands that. You have to make it really simple. So the, ordinary person who isn't a theologian or a graduate in church history can understand. It's like, well, is it idolatry to worship a man or not? And Jews and Muslims would agree that you're not supposed to even think of God as in any way physical or material, because that would be idolatry.
Right, right. Yeah, I see the angle. Yes, it's yeah.
Well, I'm trying to make
Yeah.
it simple for people, and then the next thing I say is like, okay, let's just suppose that God doesn't exist. What harm does idolatry do to you?
Okay, so so
And
so
I'm
so
saying
here's the
it
other
would
angle.
waste your time.
Right. Okay, so this is how I understand it.
Hmm?
Right. If Christ or Jesus is half God, half man, or God dwelling in the temple of man, so that they say that your body is a temple, and the spirit, God can, the Almighty can choose to live in it or not. Um, or I think, as you were saying, the Chinese, was it the something of heaven, the light of heaven, or what is it? What was that term?
Mandate of
The faith
heaven.
mandate of heaven, right? So the mandate of heaven if a person personifies the mandate of heaven, and the mandate of heaven comes to dwell within that body, that temple, um, then that, that temple, that body will do the mandate of heaven
Um,
until the
I
mandate of heaven leaves that body. Then you no longer have the mandate of heaven.
well, that's not the ancient Chinese view of it, because the mandate of heaven is, not like the Holy Spirit, as you seem to be suggesting, but it's just a political instrument for saying that every emperor of China begins with the mandate of heaven. He is assumed to have the mandate of heaven, i.e., the approval and support of heaven, and the signs of the mandate of heaven being withdrawn from this emperor. Um, because he would be the most powerful person around, and once upon a time, China thought, well, it is the Middle Kingdom, and the most powerful kingdom in the whole wide world. So the idea that who can control the most powerful man, you know, in China, it must be God, because nobody else can, you know, um, um,
Yeah, but it's the
they're
same
not supposed
principle.
to challenge him.
Yeah, of course, but it's the same principle. You're saying the mandate of heaven, who can control? So, who grants the mandate of heaven? It's the same principle.
God,
Right. So, if God can grant the mandate of heaven, God can also take it away. So,
exactly.
right. So, it's the
So
same
it's like
thing.
the divine. Mm,
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same thing as Christianity. It's exact principle. It's
it's
kind of a universal
it
principle.
confers. Yeah, it
Yeah,
confers on the absolute monarch the divine right to rule. It's a divine right of kings, right?
that's right. That's right. So it's
But
it's
it's
it's the
easier to
same.
believe because
Is
the
it?
signs of the mandate of heaven being withdrawn would be um, rebellion, pestilence, famine, natural disaster, and invasion. So obviously you've done something wrong if these things happen to your empire, and then you are toppled, and then a new emperor takes your place, who will be assumed to have the mandate of heaven. It's very logical,
Um,
unlike the divine right of kings, which relies on the Pope, or which relied on the Pope until, the monarchs of Europe had enough of it and said, we're going to be our own Pope. We're not going to listen to you. I mean,
right.
you may laugh, but that's actually what happened. That's what the Wars of the Reformation was about. It was so oppressive. Catholicism was so oppressive that even the monarch said, "No, we've had enough. We don't want you to be, kicking us around. And anyway, you haven't got an army, so we don't have to listen to you." I mean, the
And you
best.
haven't got an army. That's right.
I
So
mean, yeah,
why?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the best the Pope could do was get powerful Catholic countries such as Spain to launch their armada against the English. That's the best he could do.
But here, that raises an interesting point of this discussion and debate, actually, because what is more, where does power sit? Does it sit with the army, or does it sit? So that, like in the House of Lords, you have the Lords spiritual and you have the Lords secular, or.
Temporal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So where does the power sit? Is it really with the moral values or with the temporal values? And I would say it sits with. So you don't need an army because I would say the power is really with the moral, even though it's invisible. Would you
Well,
agree with that?
yes, yes, because when Constantine the Great adopted Christianity, he was still emperor of Rome, and there, but Rome fell in the year 476. So basically, the Catholic Church was kind of without the visible means of support. Because what you want is you're king, you have a priesthood, you have a police force, you have an army, but you're king, and there would be a kind of balance of power, because obviously you know bad stuff would happen if you were being such a terrible king that the priest disagrees with you, and your army rebel against you, and your police won't do anything to protect you. So you have, in a way, as the supreme leader of your kingdom, you have to kind of make sure that they all are, you know, supporting you, right? But if you do terrible things, you would lose the support of, the barons, the priesthood, etc. And that is when that they might rise up in rebellion and kill you if you're king, which has happened. But but
Right.
but what I'm trying to say about the Catholic Church is once Rome fell, it was basically the church without any visible means of support, right? Because it wasn't part of the Roman Empire anymore, because the Roman Empire had fallen.
And right, and for an empire to fall, it's because of moral decay, I would say,
Yes.
because fundamentally it's about the management of births, deaths, and marriages, and those three kind of are in the have to be managed in the way,
Well,
because
yes. So
you're managing the emotion, high level emotional
yeah, I mean, I was
stuff.
talking to Khaled on Thursday. I hope people go to my Magamartha channel to check it out. But we did discuss. I mean, he was a little offended to think that all really saying all religions are being used to protect the institution of marriage. Because if you don't make sure that most children in your society were brought up by two parents, they will be, markedly different to their parents, and degenerate, and not agree with their parents, and not do anything, their parents want to do, and follow the ancestral tradition, whatever it is. And the only way you can pass on these, ideas is through marriage and having a two-parent family. But if you just leave it to mum to bring up, the children will start rebelling against mum as soon as the same height as her.
That's right. Yes. So you agree with me then that that mandate of heaven, or the spirit or the Holy Spirit, all these things, it's in that moral realm, the invisible realm, the realm of values, that
Hmm.
decides whether your em- empire or your home survives. And
Yeah,
uh,
it's
uh,
about justice, about things
yes,
being fair enough. Because if things are fair enough, people will, put up with a lot of things. It's only when it's obviously unfair, it is crazy, it is evil, it is, moronic to do this or that, that you get into trouble.
so what's
But
your
as long as
understanding
it's
of
fair
justice?
enough,
Fair enough. So what's your
yeah,
understanding of
it,
justice?
being fair enough.
what what is fair enough? So let's say we put you now, you're the leader now, you've been given the mandate of heaven. How do
Hmm.
you guarantee fair enough? Because depending on how well you manage that
Avoiding
concept of society.
rebellion would be, you know, okay. It's basically a pass mark, right? You know, um, over 50% of people think you're okay. And it could be 50 point 0.000009, right? It doesn't even have to be 51. It just has to be the majority of people think you're fair enough. Then they're not going to rise up in rebellion against you. But if more, if the majority think you're crazy, you're stupid, you're evil, they will be making plans to get rid of you. It might take a long time, but if you carry on being um, obviously unjust, then it's only a matter of time before they'll get it together to get rid of you.
That's true.
Uh,
Only a matter of time. But then it seems to me that just listening to what you're saying, that justice is really is very much related to the mandate of heaven. It's almost like it's in the minds of the collective values. It's not even in the leader's mind. It's not even in the king's mind. That thing is like a what's it? It's a collective consciousness, as it were. When the
mhm.
people feel that i- things are bad, they need they need an entity to blame, a physical thing
A
to
scapegoat.
yes. So the yes. So yeah, a scapegoat for their own um mismanagement of relations amongst each other.
Yeah,
Because
but you see, it hasn't helped the Jews because scapegoat is actually a biblical idea, right? The Jews would do it. They pretend that the scapegoat has all their sins and then they will force it to walk off a cliff or something, right? But it's like, well, you haven't solved your problem by pretending that some unfortunate animal carries all your sin and you send it into the wilderness. They still even do it now. They have this scape chicken kapora, right? They wave the chicken over the head of the Jew or something, and then they sacrifice it, and then it appalls all these New Yorkers because they don't even, they waste a chicken. They don't even, you know, take it away and butcher it and turn it into chicken. They just leave it to die on the street. Well, to be dead on the streets and not even eat it.
yeah,
And then, of course, there's a problem. It's like, well, what do I do with a chicken? I don't know how to do, because you got to, plunge it into, you know, boiling water to release, to take off the feathers, and then you have to gut it, and nobody knows how to do all that, so they just prefer to leave it. And this has generated all kinds of accusations of animal cruelty and of course waste. And
so
now they do this. Oh, we're going to wave $20 over the head of the Jew or something. They have changed their tradition, which means it wasn't much of a tradition anyway. But you can understand how the scape chicken tradition came along because once they moved to New York, they can't find a scapegoat and send it out to the wilderness, could they?
mm,
So they had to find a new tradition of yeah, sacrificing chickens, and then that doesn't look too good. So,
well,
so
y-
you know,
go on.
well, I'm just saying that they're not that smart as a people. I mean, well, I mean they're
Okay,
not.
this is gonna no, okay. Watch this. This is gonna sound a bit crazy, but all right, call me a conspiracy theorist. But all the I wrote a book about it actually called Sin Management.
Hmm.
So if you have an order and rules and codes of practice, and there's sin if you if you disobey the codes of practice. So these are principles. It really doesn't matter what group, whether Freemasons, Christians, or Jesuits, or Muslims. It doesn't really matter. Once you have an organization with an order at the highest level, um, to disobey the rules is worthy of death. Even in
Hmm.
banking, that's why people just jump out the windows and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so at the low level, it's just not really, yeah, but at the high level, a mistake is enormous. So if you have a group of people and then somebody um, does something wrong, but their value to the group, then what they'll say, okay, the the, the penalty is death for you. But what we'll do, because we want to keep you. you're of great value to the group, we're going to find a scapegoat. And then they find a scapegoat. It's the same thing with gang culture or whatever. So I'm saying to what I'm suggesting, where's the evidence? I'm just suggesting uh, my theoretical belief is that the scapegoat principle has always been and always will be. And what they'll do, they'll sacrifice a chicken or other, not just Jewish people, other people will sacrifice an animal or something as symbolical of the real thing. And the real thing is people, is a person, but they can't put that in public. So the sacrifice of animals just shows that the, the the real tradition is still functional, but not in public.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You,
the leader could make a terrible mistake and blame it on somebody else to stay in power, right?
right? Yeah. So that,
And then,
yeah,
and
and
then,
that could cost the life of the person.
mm, and that would be unjust.
Oh, now this is where it gets complicated. Would it be unjust? You see, because it's all about justice. Remember, we asked that
Hmm.
question: what is justice? So
Being fair enough.
justice is the management, is sin management. How do you
Hmm.
effectively manage the sins of the individual and the sins of the corporation and the sins of the family and the sins of the people, community? How do you effectively manage sin? Depending on how effectively you
You
manage
have
sin,
laws.
pardon?
You have laws.
No, because the more laws you have, then there's more laws to break. So,
Well, just have few. Don't have lots of laws. Just have a
yeah, yeah,
few
but
that
what's the
everybody
few?
can agree
What's the
on.
few? Either way it goes,
The seven no hide laws.
right? Okay,
The seven no hide laws.
yeah, but the principle is, if you have 7 laws, there's 7 laws to break. If you have 700 laws, there's 700 laws to break. Either way it goes, the breaking of one law has to be managed. If there's only 7 laws and you break one, then I imagine the impact will be a lot larger than if there's 700 laws and you break one. But either way it goes, depending on the size of the community or the group, it's about the management. Because remember we talked about the Messiah and the end times at the beginning of the conversation, and he talked about that that cult man and the idea of Jesus Christ being the advocate in heaven, in the Holy of Holies. So you're an advocate for the sinner. Yes, the advocate for for the person or people that are breaking the laws. So if you break the laws, then the penalty is death. It's absolute. It's just it's maths. It's logic. So how do you deal with the hard logic? Then you have to have you because you have to you have it's all about sin management because people are sinful. People they they um they make mistakes.
Hmm.
So if they're all making mistakes, and then there'd be hardly anybody left. So therefore, you have to find a way of letting people off in order to keep the society together. Otherwise, you're just killing off everybody.
Redemption. Redemption.
Right.
It's a common concept to all the Abrahamic religions, right?
Yeah, but okay. So
Penitence.
let's see if it's if it's a eternal principle. That's my argument. My argument saying that this exact same principles applied in China. How when the mandate of heaven, if one's starting to lose the mandate of heaven, does it begin with the leader, or does certain things start happening within the society, or is it natural causes? Either way it goes, the people and the leader have to um, try and fix the chaos that is arriving, whether it's um, enemies coming in or whether it's a storm coming in. You know, you're building structures to defend the society from the threats, which could be natural threats or unnatural threats. And if if the defense against the threats is ineffective, not effective, then you've lost the mandate of heaven.
Yes,
Correct?
yes.
Right.
So
Right.
you correct yourself, but you know, the problem with liars, and I guess a lot of politicians lie, and once you tell lies to other people, you might commit the ultimate sin of lying to yourself, right? And that's why people now talk about luxury.
Say that again. Luxury beliefs.
Is liberalism a belief? Is Christianity a luxury belief? Economy beliefs? And I'm saying, yeah, facts and logic are economy, they are basic beliefs. You can't do without accepting reality as it actually is, because if you keep denying it, one day, bad stuff will happen. If you think it's safe to go out and it's not, then you will be doing yourself an injury.
Okay. But you see, lying to yourself is a fundamental part of self, isn't it? Because there's a battle between your mind and your body. And sometimes even in exercises, you have to trick your body to do certain things in order to keep your health. Because if you just listen to your body, you'd be doing all kinds of horrible things to yourself and then lose your health. You'd be eating all kinds of bad things. So your
Well,
body's telling
yeah.
you one thing, and then your mind and your body are always at war. So your mind is lying to your body, and your body is lying to your mind. Correct?
Well, actually, Freudian theory is very useful for this sort of thing because you know that Freud has divided the psyche, the human psyche, into id, the ego, and the superego, don't you? Are you familiar with Freudian theory?
Yeah, yeah,
So basically, the id is just whatever it wants to do, um, you know, hunger, thirst, sex, whatever it is that your body wants. Too many sweets, the extra pizza or whatever. And the ego is, well, I don't want to seem a glutton to other people around me, so I better not have that fifth helping of whatever that my guest, my host is offering me. I better say no, even though I really would like a third helping of ice cream or whatever it is. Okay. And then the super ego is, what maybe dad or what you think God tells you not to do, you know. So I think even as individuals, we are conflicted that these three things pulling us, in a different direction. And obviously we only feel at ease when, oh, I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And dad would approve, or God would approve, or something like that.
yeah. So the point I'm making is what you've described is scalable. They're principles, so it applies to the individual. The battle within is also applies to the group. It also applies to a nation, any group. So what you're saying is scalable. So that means
You mean it can have a wider application than just the
no, it
individual?
does. No, I'm saying no, no, not that it can. It
What
does.
does scalable mean? Can you give me an example of scalable?
Right. So the battle between the mind and the body is the same as exactly the same as the battle between the collective conscious mind, what people generally feel is correct, and what they actually are doing. That struggle is scalable. Does that make sense?
Um, well, rather than just go by the majority, um, surely we, you know, I guess if you're Aztec, you might get a situation where the majority of people feel okay with human sacrifice. Then what do you do? Is that necessarily correct?
Well,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
I mean that.
correctness. Correctness is just like you have a value. What you see is correct for yourself. Yeah. Okay. I'll just have one extra cake this time, or scoop of ice cream this time because I'm going jogging tomorrow. So you're making judgments all the time
Mhm.
within yourself. So that's scalable. So also the people are doing that. They're making judgments with themselves. So there's nothing fixed. So
Yeah,
the
that's why
mandate of
you
heaven.
need the law to say, you mustn't do this.
Okay, need a law. Yeah, that's
No,
when you
nobody cares about the law. It's
hold it,
so
hold it,
uncool to
hold it
care
there. As
about
soon
the
as you
law.
said you need the law, as soon as you said that, I straight away I heard I visualized. It just came to my mind the clock, time. I don't know why, but that's just came straight. You need the law. You need a clock. So it's can society function as well without timepieces?
Of course not.
Right. Of course not. But right. So the timepieces, the ultimate timepiece, I suppose, is the sun, sunset, day and night. Yeah, that's the basic clock. And then as society um, developed, then the timepieces became more and more sophisticated. But the
Yeah, because we want to go from A to B, and we want our trains to be on time, and we want, if we extend invitations to people to come to our party, we want them to come on the right day at the right time.
but so can you relate time to law then? This-
Oh yes, because I mean I think everybody agrees that, I mean even the expression, "What time do you make it?" You know, because you might have a different idea of time to me, or "I want you here at 8 p.m. sharp, not around 8, before 8,
Right.
just up, sharp. I want you to be there."
Sharp. That's
Right?
right.
I mean, there are all these expressions, and people get really annoyed when people don't turn up on
Yeah.
time. Well, like school,
Right.
right? So but anyway, nobody's sort of questioning. I think it's Tuesday, but you think it's Friday, kind of crap. But actually, they do because they argue about calendars and things.
Right.
But calendars are very political things.
Right. So if the calendars are political things, it's the same as law. So I'm going to do some meditation on that actually, the relationship between time and law and sin.
Well, I mean, I don't know why law has been so difficult for you when you think of the commandments, which I assume you accept,
Yeah, but
the laws of
the
God.
commandments are like um, the points, the points in a clock face. So there's one, there's two, three, all the way to 12. So if I say I want you there at 12, the commandment. So you either keep it or you can't. You're either if you miss the 12 o'clock, 12:30 sharp appointment, then it's sin. You've missed it.
Yeah, you might not get your appointment with your doctor or whatever,
Exactly, exactly. So
or he might be annoyed with
right.
you.
So therefore, the law is absolute. Yeah. Um, it's 1 o'clock or it's 4 o'clock. This absolute, but um, organizations and entities that set times and meetings, like the hospital or a doctor, dentist, they have kind of leeway, don't they? They have kind of if you don't arrive there bang on time, um,
They might charge you a cancellation fee.
right, cancel. That's right, that's right. But how far does it trigger the cancellation fee? After 3 minutes late, uh, 10 minutes late, 20 minutes late? When does it?
Or if you miss it by an entire hour.
Hour. Right, right. So maybe some places will say maybe it's an hour. Some people may say it's 10 minutes, depending on the pressure. So so having the law is a specific time, and then that punishment for the sin of missing the time, the allotted time, or breaking the law. Then you have an advocate. The advocate would say, okay, it was on the news that there was a bomb went off on one of the trains and buses, so everybody was late. So uh, we will we won't charge you for being late because we've heard evidence that the buses or trains were late. So it's all sin management.
Yeah,
It
it's
boils
like you
down to
couldn't help it. It wasn't
pardon?
because you overslept that you're late. Because,
Yeah,
even if you were there, at the right place at the right time to catch the right bus, you couldn't have made it because, it was an impossibility to get to
right,
work on
and
time. And that
right.
would be fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I
so
mean,
therefore the scapegoat would be with the transport services. So you're supposed to pay the sin, but you're forgiven, and then um, you're cleaned, and then it's put onto
you are
the
excused because,
excuse.
I
Yeah,
mean, even under insurance policies, they talk about an act of God. And it's like an act of God. Well, what is a mere mortal to do when, and it includes natural disaster or, a revolution or a war breaking out, preventing you from doing this thing that you promised to do,
and then
right? You've heard,
will the insurance pay out? Will the
well,
insurance pay
actually,
out?
it's saying, well, we're not going to pay out because, our, but you can't actually insure against acts of God. Well,
All
it depends
right,
on what the contract actually says, because all
right,
insurance policies are a contract, and it's just a matter of fact what it says it includes and what it says. You
right.
know,
And then when you, as you mentioned, contract now, and it's interesting conversation. We're moving from sin to advocate to contract, and then it comes back round to God, contract, because they say that you have the social contract. Comes back down to contract. It's interesting how I have to meditate on that as well. Insurance, religion, contracts.
yeah.
Wow.
So I'm saying, all our problems can be solved by having the right laws, right? And I'm saying its laws derive from Quranic principles, and everybody freaks out because, deep down they're all Islamophobes, and they would have difficulty
Slow
admitting
that down.
that
You
they.
just said, wait a minute, slow down. You said all problems can be solved by having the right laws.
Mhm.
All problems.
Well, certainly the problem of people saying it's not fair, right? And I'm saying, well, it's fair enough. Most people in this country think it's fair enough because they haven't um, they're not in open rebellion, right? There is no revolution, so I guess things are fair enough. But you could say, well, they just haven't got round to it yet. Just you wait, Henry Higgins. Just you wait.
Mm.
But we don't know. But I mean, we can have forms of words that explain the situation and resolve the current uncertainty. Because somebody saying the laws are not fair, somebody saying the law is fair enough, or they're really not fair. But and there will be open rebellion if the state of injustice continues.
The state
So
of
the three options, right? I've given you three
perceived
options now.
injustice.
But it might be correctly perceived injustice.
Mm, correct. I don't know. I don't know if the word correct. Because seems correct seems it's correct that words is kind of absolute. It's a bit like the time 12:30, bang on.
Well,
Correct is kind of absolute.
well, I mean, people don't really want to organize revolutions, right? They prefer to think that their government is all right and that their ruling classes are not mad or evil or, you know,
Mm,
morons, right? So they won't do anything until things get really, really bad. That's always been the way.
yeah, that's right.
So, as a political activist, all you can say is, it's not fair and just you wait if you think you're going to get away with this.
That's
And
right.
everybody listen, because I've made a prediction. If it comes true, it means that I am a wise leader because I foresaw the future that nobody else did. It's that kind
Mm,
of thing, isn't it?
yeah. Mhm.
And
Anyway, I have to go now. So it's been nice
okay,
talking to you. I've got lots of good food for thought for the day, actually. Insurance, contracts, probability, law, and time. So I'll catch you again. Take care.
thank you for your very stimulating questions and comments, Mr. IC3.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. So, Burbling Bison is still not here and doesn't appear to be joining me. Now, I have a few more things to say on the subject of predicting the future and the law. So I'm saying it shouldn't be too hard for people to agree on which religion has. Okay, let me start again. I'm saying if you're going to choose a religion, you would choose a religion that is easy to believe, where most people are already, you know, in agreement with and think is fair enough. And then you would choose the religion with the most powerful deity, certainly not less powerful than any of the ones that you've heard. And then you're going to choose the religion with the longest standing track record. And currently that appears to be Christianity. But then we are discovering that a lot of people who call themselves Christian are only cultural Christians. They don't really, they don't believe in the Trinity, right? They neither believe nor worship the Trinity, or those who claim to do so are hypocrites. Because how can you believe that Jesus created the universe when it's so impossibly vast that we don't even know, how many square light years it is? We don't even know. So, how can a man executed by the Romans and Jews for blasphemy could have created the universe? It's absurd. So why do Christians in particular want to keep believing in it? It's because of their deadly sin of pride. And it is sad that after all this time, people cannot bring themselves to admit that they were wrong. But increasingly, the signs of Christians being wrong will become undeniable. So right now, Americans and Europeans can say, oh, we live in Christian countries. Look at our churches, look at our cathedrals, look at our bishops and archbishops and popes. But really, they don't believe, and you can only tell they don't believe by the things they say. And I go back to Paul van der Klee talking about randos. I'm not a rando. He can call me that if he wants, but I think he's obviously going to, be mocking me and denigrating my idea while not giving me the opportunity to respond. And I think this is the lowly tactic that they're now reduced to because they know they can't win the argument and they may, resort to lies and government intimidation because if you and I disagree and I win the argument but you kill me, who's really won the argument? Hmm? You may think you've won the argument for now, but in time the truth will come out. So let us think about all these men and women who were burnt as heretics over the centuries in Europe. And I think we have to think of them to have a true picture of Christianity. So currently we think, oh, Christianity is all about turning the other cheek again, and, rotating all our four cheeks to be slapped. And but we also know from Christian history that Christians were very warlike people. They fought the wars of the Reformation, and before that, they waged the Crusades and slew Jews and Muslims in the Levant as an act of empire building. So let us not pretend that Christians were always meek and mild. They were real from the start. And I'm not proposing the dismantling of the Western Empire. I am only proposing imperial reform. And I'm saying if you want to keep your empire, you need a better system of rules that will be perceived to be fair enough, not just by your own people, but by the international community. And I'm saying it's actually possible, it is easy to do, and there are certain steps that have to be taken in order to introduce secular Quranism to the wider Western public. And obviously, somebody has to do that. It would be nice to go straight to Tucker Carlson, but I suppose I have to start with Paul van der Klee, who has had a brush with Petersonian greatness. And he's growing a channel which I imagine he would like to use it when he retires as pastor. And I'm very happy to assist him in doing that. But first, he has to bite the bullet and talk to me. I mean, obviously, I don't expect him to immediately agree with me since most of his viewers and subscribers are, not to put too fine a point on it, Islamophobes. But I think for the sake of the West, um, Westerners should be given an opportunity to consider whether Christianity is still working. And I'm saying it isn't. It is currently being weaponized against dissidents by first attracting dissidents. So there will be two two conferences which are political in nature in June. There is the, let me find out. I keep forgetting the name of the first one, but there is the bigger one called ARC, Alliance for Responsible Citizens. Let me give you the date. I think it's the 22nd and 23rd, or 23rd and 24th, something like that, that weekend. And there is well, it's the one that's being organised by Paul Van der Kay. And it's really annoying me that I can't remember the name. But I'm looking it up. Yes, it's the Breakwater Festival. 19th to 21st. I think there will be fundamentally Islamophobic because obviously, the West is a degenerate matriarchy, and it will seek to perpetuate itself and say, oh, the West is built on Christianity and liberal values and that kind of thing. And I'm saying it is failing, and for the sake of Westerners and the people they share the world with, it would be better to avoid World War III altogether and not be building up to it because, well, it's not in the interest of Europeans and Americans to, well, start a war with the rest of the world. And it's only because the military industrial complex refuses to give up its power over Western leaders that it is causing the problem. So really, if we were being sensible, Europeans in particular, they would be being nice to Russia and being beneficiaries of the cheap energy that it could be getting, but instead they are buying very expensive liquid natural gas from America, and America doesn't care about Europeans. In fact, you could say that the American government doesn't even care about their own people. I mean, Americans have no public transport. Without their car, well, they would really not be able to go to work. Most Americans drive tens of miles to get to work. There is literally no public transport system. They can't take a bus to work. They can't take a train to work. To even get to work, they need to own a car, and they need to make sure it's roadworthy. And if it isn't, it's going to cost them over $1,000 every time their car breaks down. It is a terrible situation to be in, and I know Americans would be, well, angry and envious to see the kind of public transport Chinese people get. They just have to look at their trains, and then they will understand how little they are getting from their government compared to China. But then if you show them, videos of, safe and clean and beautiful Chinese cities, it'll just make the Americans want to nuke and bomb China, right? Because of their anger and hatred and racism and so that is probably what is fueling the march towards World War III. We already know that the Americans are planning to choke off the supply of oil to China to stop China from rising. Perhaps before too long, any videos on X about how livable and clean and safe Chinese cities are will actually be censored, because this will make Europeans and Americans realize how little they are getting from their government, and what they will be getting more from their government is more censorship and more wars that the government cannot explain and will not allow to be discussed. So I urge people like Paul van der Klee. I know he has his vested interest. He doesn't want to admit that Christianity is kaput and that Islam, with its Sharia and neat legalistic categories, will allow people to understand very readily who is keeping to the rules and who is breaking the rules. It seems so obvious that they don't want it. They want to keep things kind of Christian. They want to keep right and wrong murky and optional. And I'm saying it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you solve your problems by holding on to your ancestral religion because of your chauvinism and your racism and your Islamophobia, and thinking, well, we don't like them, we can just nuke them. Because if you do too much of that, if you bomb and invade and pillage, eventually your victims will get it together to organize themselves against you, particularly when your president is mad. Well, I've waited quite patiently for Burbling Bison, who was supposed to be here at 9 a.m. And now it's 11, so nobody can say I didn't try and keep the stream open for him to join. But I'm very pleased with the very constructive discussions I've had with Mr. IC3, and he seems to have appreciated what I was saying about the law and acts of God and the mandate of heaven, which is the ancient Chinese way of defending the divine right of kings to rule. But fortunately, there is no need now to defend the divine right of kings, because we all, to all intents and purposes, live in republics. What is most important is that we live in constitutional republics, but it is not sufficient just to live in a constitutional republic, because the citizens of that constitutional republic need to understand the values and principles and beliefs of their particular group. The most important group is really America, because it is still the global hegemon, and it is the one that is causing all the problems, because it wants to attack everyone that is not not a representative democracy. So if you operate representative democracy, it means that you are under the control of the CIA, and we know that Iran is not operating representative democracy, though they have elections, and China too has elections. It's just that they don't have general elections. So both countries do in fact consult the people that they govern, but in a way that doesn't make them vulnerable to the machinations of the military industrial complex, which George Washington warned all those years ago would be, what's a word he used? Not threatening to Republican liberty. I'll find the right words for you. Overpowerful military establishment. Dangerous. Overgrown military establishments are inauspicious to liberty and particularly hostile to Republican liberty. You don't have much liberty under monarchy, and even if you do appear to have quite a lot of liberty for a while, as the British did, the fact is that it can easily be overturned. So the British really are subject, well, they live under the doctrine of parliamentary supremacy, which means that Parliament has the right to pass and repeal any law it wants. So Parliament has in fact become the absolute monarch of the British people, and they can change or repeal any law they want, and the British people would be helpless against this, and they're getting sadly increasingly cowardly and stupid and fearful of using facts and logic to solve their problems. And that is why it is important that honourable, honest, wise men consider my proposal. But the frightening thing is that there may be no honourable or wise men in the entire West, which is represented by the global hegemon of America, even when it nominally has First Amendment rights. If you don't assert them, then you won't get them. And most middle class people are too afraid to even go there. They won't discuss certain subjects, and I know that in the TLC they avoid discussing certain subjects, and when they try to, they cannot speak directly. They avoid the subject, and also fundamentally they are Islamophobes, and Paul van der Klee is pandering to them every time he praises Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who has converted to Christianity. He is affirming their position and pandering to clueless Islamophobes who will always prefer to feel hatred and fear than to admit that Christianity has failed, and it failed a long time ago. If they would, well, I guess they won't be reading Edward Gibbon's 8-volume history on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, but it was what Edward Gibbon said. He said Christianity caused Rome to decline and fall for all kinds of reasons. The monasteries which sucked up the men of fighting age capable of joining the Roman army to maintain the Roman Empire, They just prefer to probably be gay with each other in their monasteries. And so there were a lot of things that caused a decline and fall of the Roman Empire. And we also know that Christianity has a long history of failure. And Christians to this day refuse to acknowledge it because they think the military supremacy of the American empire can hold this fact at bay. The mechanism of morality is that people need to know what their moral principles are. Actually, I'm glad Dr. Mengele has come up to talk about the Jews, but I need to get myself a coffee. I believe I can play some music to keep you entertained while I go to the kitchen. Well, I'm back. Oh, yes, a few more people. So, Dr. Mengele will keep thinking that it's Jews who control the West, when in fact, Zionism is an Anglo American imperial project, and it should have become clearer by now how important having a presence in Israel is to the Anglo American Empire. So the mythos is that the Anglo American Empire protects Jews to ensure that anti Semites will never hurt Jews again, while promoting anti Semitism all over the world, and particularly in the West. But what they do is very deliberate in that they will use the anti Semitism provoked as further evidence of anti Semitism to make it, to give them a further excuse for more censorship. So that is the cycle of ever increasing censorship. I don't know what you're talking about here about Dom invitating Zuha. Never heard of either. But then I suppose I'm talking mainly to conspiracy theorists who talk about, well, their marginal conspiracy theories. So for people like Dr. Mengele, who blame Jews for everything, they will obviously not say it is the Anglo-American empire that controls Jews. Jews who are sent to go and live in Israel and to provoke anti-Semitism in the West and elsewhere, to give the Anglo-American empire a further excuse to impose more censorship and create more anti Semitism. So that is my swift and simple explanation of Zionism, which I'm sure anti Semites will reject because their preferred narrative is that Jews control them. He says, by Jews appeal fact that Jews' IHRA definition of anti Semitism, well, it doesn't benefit all Americans, it only benefits neocons. And neocons are a very small minority of America embedded in the military industrial complex. And, well, they are well, we already know that the ruling classes are the apex of the pyramid. So it was always a minority anyway. And Dr. Mengele is in Australia. He is a product of the Anglo American global empire. So I don't suppose most people have a very coherent idea of geopolitics. It is the most important thing to understand if you're going to understand the role of Jews and the wars being planned by the neocons who will be continuing to pretend to negotiate peace with Iran and attack them from time to time while Russia and China are sort of not doing too much to prevent it. Dr. Mengele asks, why is it illegal to boycott Israel in 30 states? I'm saying it's a deliberate policy to generate more anti Semitism, to give the government more excuse, more of an excuse to censor people. That's why I keep saying, you talk about Americans as if it were, they all think alike. Obviously, they don't. They are, neocon Americans and MAGA Americans, and now we have realized, we discovered to our horror that MAGA was really neocon all along. So either Trump never intended to keep his promises, or he is prevented from keeping his promise of ending the neocon wars and the uncontrolled mass immigration. So this means that representative democracy is a busted flush. But then these ideas are sacred to many Westerners. Even anti Semitism is sacred to anti Semites. They don't want to think that all along they have been blaming the wrong people because they're being stupid, ignorant, and just taking the easy way out of scapegoating Jews and, well, anyone they don't like the look of in their country. So a lot of government policy is about overprivileging Jews, and well, this is a very clever way of preventing anyone from discussing Israel or US foreign policy in the Middle East. Well, eventually, just saying US foreign policy in the Middle East will be interpreted as anti Semitic because Tucker Carlson was very careful not to say Jews and to say Israel, but it's not allowed. So his saying Israel too many times and too pointedly has resulted in him, of all people, being labeled as anti Semitic. So we need a different narrative to make the point. And the point is we should pity the Jews. We should pity the fuck out of them. Because really, they are a leaderless rabble who have very little idea of who they are and what they're supposed to do. After all, half of them are heretics. More than half of them, I would say, are heretics. And we know what they're supposed to do to heretics if they take their Torah seriously, which is to execute them. So if you're a group supposedly promoting an ideology and over half of you don't believe in that ideology and are always saying and doing things that are blasphemy to that ideology, you could be said to be not in control of your members or your ideology. And this is what I'm saying has happened to Jews. But to many anti Semites who have been anti Semitic for decades, or even before they were born, that is very difficult to accept. And therefore, you have to think of Jews as being all powerful and only below God in status and power to explain your ineptitude and your ignorance and your refusal to see reason and to keep on rejecting the idea that Christianity is kaput. Why is Dr. Mengele asks, why is Trump and the Jews pushing that no one can go to America to watch the World Cup if they have criticized Israel on social media? Well, the correct attitude to take towards America is to assume that Trump and the entire ruling class of America is, well, that they are mad, moronic, or evil. It doesn't matter which. What they're doing is not good for Americans nor the rest of the world. And this is an urgent question for Americans to consider, but what I've noticed is that they don't want to discuss it at all. Probably because they wish to remain in denial and pretend everything will be okay and petrol prices will eventually come down. So Dr. Mengele continues, US foreign policy in the Middle East by APAC, ZOAR on the left and the right. Well, Western media is very carefully controlled by the CIA, isn't it? So it just means that you cannot complain about Israel and you cannot complain about and by talking about US foreign policy, you are complaining about Israel, and that is not allowed. So you have to find a different form of words and a different narrative to make your point. And the way to make your point is to say that Jews are a leaderless rabble whose brand of Judaism has been hijacked by the neocons. Right? That's a way to look at it. And you have to understand that Jews are the ones who are actually being actually conscripted to go and live in Israel as an American colony to fight the Arabs and keep an or fight the Persians or just be there to make everyone hate them, which is the whole idea anyway. MAGA is in a civil war because of Trump's blind support for Israel. Well, that's because the Christians are always in two minds about Jews and Israel. How can you hate Jews while worshipping one? It doesn't make sense. Either give both of that up or finally decide on one or the other. But you won't because you want to cling to the religion of mum and dad. And you don't want to admit that there is a grave problem of idolatry in Christianity because, well, you just don't care about things like that, do you? Right, so Dr. Mengele says, well, he makes a good point in that Jews and Arabs are a Semitic people. And he also makes a point that Mark Levin is the de facto president of America, it would appear. But really, I don't think any American president is allowed to take a position against Israel because of the petrodollar. It is important for any global empire to control Israel because it is a part of the prestige of being a global empire. Oh, very good. I have to say that the Iranians are the ones who have made the most of Islam. And this means the Shias have made more of Islam than the leaderless Sunnis who don't even have a leader. So we should be able to understand the difference that the Shias, at least, are led by the supreme leader of Iran, while the Sunnis, they have no leader at all. And the Jews, what leaders do they have? There are plenty of, there's more than one kind of Zionism, and a lot of Christians also support Zionism, and actually, Israel is run under the principles of Christian Zionism because the idea is to get the Jews to go live in Israel and then convert them to Christianity. Right, so Dr. Mengele is having difficulty accepting my narrative that Jews are leaderless rabble because they don't know who they are. They are basically servants of the neocons. They literally do not have a leader, do they, Dr. Mengele? You don't know who their religious leader are. You don't know. Well, they don't have an official leader of who is a rabbi, do they? And nobody cares about the religious Jews because most Gentiles in the West are atheists anyway. So the problem is, in fact, atheism. And although there will be people claiming to be Christian, they they don't really believe that God exists to punish them for idolatry because they don't take idolatry seriously. And if you don't take idolatry seriously, it means that you don't believe that God exists to punish you for any of the things that he expressly and for specifically forbade in his commandments. And this is fundamentally the problem. People just don't get it because they don't care. And that's why it is impossible to wake a man who is only pretending to be asleep. And therefore, the problem is people claiming to be Christian and utterly indifferent to being accused of idolatry. They just don't care. They can't even pretend to care because they don't think that anyone that God exists to punish anyone for anything. So Christianity is their comfort blanket that they used to use when they were children, and they just want to have access to it, and they don't really care if it makes sense or not, because they do not have the beginning of wisdom to even fear God. Because they don't believe he exists to punish them for their idolatry. What are you asking me about, Rabbi Misraki? I don't feel I should end the stream without understanding your question and asking and answering it. I don't think Rabbi Misraki is infallible. I think he's got a lot of things wrong, but at least he is trying to. Well, he takes his religion seriously, and he is, and well, he is quite a raconteur, isn't he? And he has also been the victim of the Israeli Supreme Court. And one of the things that I found out about Israel is that the Knesset may be able to pass legislation, but the Supreme Court of Israel has a power to veto legislation coming from the Knesset. And this is what leads me to think that really the liberals in Israel are taking orders directly from Washington. If you bother talking to Jews in the West, they do not accept Rabbi Misraki as their leader. In fact, a lot of the assimilated Jews, even if they're Orthodox, they cringe. They hate his Israeli accent. They think he's a fundamentalist and he's far too strict. So he doesn't get much support. In fact, he's been declared persona non grata by the immigration authorities of Britain. So he can't come without being subjected to a 3-hour interrogation or something. So he's decided not to come, even though there are Jewish communities in the UK who do want him to come and talk to them. So I don't know why you're talking about Rabbi Schneerson, who is deceased. The BB files. What does it matter? Are you talking about the Epstein files? I really don't think it matters. The point is that the CIA would be busily gathering compromat on all the powerful people in the West so that they can blackmail them and make them do things they otherwise wouldn't do by inviting them to Epstein Island. What's the surprise? This is how any secret service would operate, right? You blackmail people after gathering information about them that they wouldn't like to get out. It's just because I enjoy Rabbi Misraki's lectures doesn't mean I think he's infallible. Right, I've been talking for over 2 hours. I've tried to say everything that was on my mind and all the matters arising out of my conversation with Mr. IC3. And I think I've dealt with quite a list of important topics. Oh, right. So Dr. Mengele is separating CIA and Mossad, and I'm saying they work together. They might as well be one agency because they all serve the American empire. And if you were really paying attention, you would have noticed, but because you are always scapegoating the Jews, you will only have this tunnel vision of blaming the Jews. Christians, are you even Christian, Dr. Mengele? I think you just blindly hold on to the religion of mum and dad. Do you really worship a Jew? Do you really worship the Trinity and believe that Jesus is co-equal, co-eternal, and co-substantial with God? Do you really? I don't think you do. I think you just think you have the right to ill-treat minorities, and that would include Jews. And you don't really care if Jews are right or wrong. You just reserve the right to kick them around because you don't like them. Plenty of CIA exposed Mossad. What does that even mean? They might as well be the same agency as far as I'm concerned. Are you now confirmed? Is that a new thing? Because the last time I asked you, you said you were only baptized. But I don't think you believe that Jesus is God. Because it's so absurd that I think you would know how absurd it is. And it is really the job of Muslims to make sure that every Christian understands the absurdity of the Trinity. So here we go again about the Christ killers. So you can't decide between worshipping a Jew and blaming Jews for killing Jesus. The Islamic narrative should be able to resolve these matters in your mind, because if it would really upset you to think of Jesus as not the good guy he is in your mind, then you would have to adopt the Muslim narrative, because Muslims are polite about Jesus, and all Jews think, well, they've cursed Jesus to be boiling in semen and excrement for all eternity, and have said that Jesus is the bastard son of a Roman soldier called Panthera. So you can take your pick. But if you want to think well of Jesus in any religion, it would have to be Islam. But then you also hate Muslims. So all you can do is choose between Jews and Muslims and not be able to decide which group you hate more. And that is your pathetic religion, really. It's either anti Semitism or Islamophobia. Anti Semitism or Islamophobia. It's certainly not Christianity. Dr. Mengele says Muslims recognize Jesus as a prophet, unlike Jews who say he should be. Yes, exactly. So really, if you were sensible, you would become Muslim. But then you also hate Muslims in your racist way, even though they have a more coherent belief system and in fact have the solution to your problems with Sharia. Oh, okay, so you like Muslims. Well, that's not. That's good to know. At least you're on your way to rehabilitation. And also, you probably like the fact that a lot of Muslims are also anti-Semites. Right, I think I've come to the end of all the comments, so I can go now. Thank you all for coming.